Bullying has become a worldwide concern for countries around the world, with news of children who are victims of bullying going into depression. Or worse, especially with the rise of social media, bullying has reached into cyberspace, making children more susceptible to it. Children like Anne have been a victim of school bullying since she was younger.
Ako po si Anne, 15 years old, incoming 4th year student po. Nag-aaral po ako sa isang private school. Ang kalimitan po yung binubully nila sa akin kasi po meron po akong syndrome na yung lower lip ko po, para pong lumalaki siya. Sinasabi po nila sa akin na ganyan, malaking labi mo, ganun. Nasasaktan po ako tuwing sinasabihan po nila ako ng ganun. Natatakot po akong magsumbong kasi po yung mga classmate ko pong yun, kadalasan po mga anak sila ng teachers, ganun po. Sa tingin ko po, yung ginagawa po na pang-discipline sa amin ng teacher ko, para po I consider that as a bullying. One day po, ni-request niya po na ilabas po namin yung journal notebook namin. Hindi po kami prepared kasi po usually pinapalabas niya po yun ng Monday. Nagalit po siya sa akin, bigla niya po akong sinigawan. That time po, sinabi ko po sa kanya yung mga dahilan kung bakit po hindi kayo nadala. And then nagulat na lang po ako na halos ipahiya niya po ako sa klase. Sigaw-sigawan niya po ako na hindi na po ako makasagot. Umiyak na lang po ako that time. Ang impact po sa akin ng pambubuli nila is nagle-lessen po yung self-confidence ko. Lalo po naisip yung mga negative na bagay tungkol sa akin. Hindi ko po magawa yung mga dapat kong gawin kasi po palagi ko po yung naiisip. Ngayon pong 4th year, naisip ko pong mag-transfer sa ibang school kasi po parang dati po ayoko na po talagang pumasok dahil po sa kanila.
Are there any laws that protect children from bullying? What existing laws does the country have in protecting its children? What should schools or school administrators and parents do when a child or a student is a victim of bullying? Good evening, I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno and you're watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you.
And I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno. Tonight, we will be discussing your legal rights on the issue of school bullying, what you need to know and do when your child is being bullied in school.
Our guest for tonight is Senator Antonio Trillanes IV, author of the Anti-Bullying Act of 2010. Good evening, Senator. Thank you so much for making the time to join us.
Good evening, Attorney Karen, and good evening, Attorney Rod.
Good evening, sir. Thank you. Thank you at pinaunlakan niyo kami for tonight.
And you had a very interesting question kay Senator Sonny before we started. Kung nabully ka ba ever? Because you don't look like the type. No?
Because I figured, you know, if I mean, because of the image you have and everything, it must be something. It had to take something personal for you to author
yes,
this.
You authored the bill on anti-bullying.
Well, personally, I myself was not really bullied, but it's actually the experience of my son. When he was in grade 6, we didn't notice anything until finally we were called by, or at least my wife was called by the school authorities, that they managed to catch the bully of my son.
He wasn't mentioning it.
Yes, he wasn't mentioning it. Actually, every day, this bully, I think he was one level higher than my son, was asking for money every day from my son and his classmate. So yes, so every day they were forking out money.
Grade po yung son niyo at that time?
I think grade 5, and the bully was grade 6. So every day they were forking out money to this grade 6 student, and they didn't say anything wrong with it. So just because they were avoiding any conflict,
getting beaten up,
yes,
possibly beaten up and all that.
Yeah.
But it takes a toll, no? I mean, you know, a lot of us would probably, you know, brush this aside as, you know, it's just kids being kids, but it does take its toll psychologically.
Especially you can see this pattern in the United States, I think, where it's more extreme. There was recently a case of suicide by a student.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's happening right now because of it may not necessarily be as extreme or or it's not necessarily more extreme now, but it's being reported now because of the information age. And in extreme cases, the affected kids, if you're the bully, you get to be involved in criminal activities or gang-related activities. And if you're the one being bullied, in extreme cases, they manifest some behavior that is abnormal and to the point of suicide.
Are affected as well.
In both cases, the bully and the bullied have poor grades. So, this is
So, Senator, we were comparing the bills that currently exist. We have a Senate bill by Senator Miriam Santiago, your bill as well, and a House bill. And it seems that of course, yung pare-pareho dito would be any type of violence or insults or abuse towards other kids. But maybe we'll talk about, we noticed with your bill, it was about basically any form of abuse within school premises or school authorized activities. So, currently po, ano yung direction ng bill? Ano yung covered acts ng bullying?
My bill was patterned after the US Anti-Bullying Act. So, I think it was before the prevalence of cyberbullying. So, right now, we have decided to adopt the House version since we didn't have any more time to reconcile the differences between the two versions. So, we will be passing, or we have passed the House version in the Senate.
Now, I suppose you also studied the prevailing laws or the current laws that we have. Did you feel that they were, I guess, insufficient in addressing bullying? Of course, we have laws on let's say things like
for every civil case for damages, for any type of abuse,
or maybe physical
emotional.
Abuse,
but you also have, of course, pag may injuries, like physical injuries. But I guess the problem here is that you're most likely dealing with minor students, no? Like the son of Senator Trillanes, na grade 5, and the offender is grade 6.
How do you address that if the offender is a minor? No?
In this current bill na magiging law, do you punish kids for acts of bullying?
Most definitely. To answer the question first, the laws that we have now are inadequate to address the problem of bullying. And with this bill, we hope to cover that policy gap. And we're not going to penalize or hail to prison those kids. But there will be graduation of penalties as dictated by the schools themselves.
What kind of penalty? What kind of penalties are we talking about? Like suspension,
from suspension to expulsion to some probationary, and other penalties that the school may think of. I think the most important aspect of this bill is the proactive response to bullying. By defining bullying and by informing the parents, the students, the teachers of what constitutes bullying, everybody would be more conscious about their behavior.
Based on your definitions, Senator, I mean, what are acts that fall under bullying that may surprise some of the parents? Oh, I didn't know that was bullying.
Because the typical would be, of course, the incident that happened to your son or physical abuse. But what other types of abuse?
The definition is quite general, and it covers acts that may cause actual physical, emotional, and psychological harm, and those that may cause fear of physical, psychological, and emotional harm. So it's going to be very, very general. But I think it's about the consciousness. If the parents would now be informed, they can actually observe their kids if they manifest such behavior. And for the teachers, they can be more observant, more vigilant about what's happening in the school grounds. And for the students themselves, if they know their rights, they can they can report right away and not keep it to themselves.
Right.
And Senator, in this bill, is there a way for students themselves to report without having to go to the parents? Kasi I feel that students normally are reluctant to really tell their parents, especially kids.
Yeah.
So does it have like a mechanism where you're required to maybe, if you're a school, to put up a help desk or some form of counseling?
Yes, it's defined there, the mechanisms for reporting and where to report, how to report. So the kids will be informed and the parents themselves, and it will also encourage anonymous reporting so that the suspected bullies can be observed by the school authorities.
And who determines kung may bullying? Is it the school based on the definition of the law? Kasi it can also be subject to abuse na meron lang nang inis sa'yo, i-report mo na for
the tough
bullying.
part there is, like for us before, no, I mean, we'd call someone, I mean, words like pandak, sakang, or we would have these terms of endearment. Sometimes you use it as a term of endearment with not knowing that we're actually insulting someone, but sometimes it just boils down to that. It's just empty chatter.
So in that case, would it be the teachers who can tell who will be able to have authority to say this is bullying and therefore we can punish the kid?
I think it's a little of both. Primarily, it will boil down to the threshold of the students themselves. If they feel that they cannot, that those teasing would cross the line or their personal threshold, then they can report it as bullying. But there are also provisions there for anti-retaliation and for false accusers. So at least
that's good to know.
Yeah.
Para hindi ma-abuse. Sorry to disturb you guys. We have to answer a question from Sharon via Twitter. Since the anti-bullying bill has not yet been passed, what alternative laws parents can use against our child's bullies? Can we file a case against them? How are cases of bullying handled by authorities? So, well, I guess this is a question for
more for lawyers.
Yeah.
Yes. No, we were talking about it earlier. Like there's
actually in the criminal revised penal code, you have pagka nasaktan, either slight physical injuries, less serious physical injuries, or serious physical injuries, depending on the injury and how long it takes for the child to recover. And also, Rod pointed out...
well, there's also unjust vexation, which are acts that will cause annoyance,
irritation
so that's also covered.
Yeah. Another thing would be, you can file a civil case for damages. This covers not only physical abuse, but also emotional abuse.
But I think all these laws that you're enumerating would only be applicable to
an adult.
Yes, I agree.
And these bills that we filed, or this anti-bullying bill that we filed, would cover elementary and high school students. So I think this will cover that policy gap.
Yeah.
But apart from the school administration, will there be an agency, a third-party agency that the parents will be able to go to complain, apart from going to the principal's office or the school board?
Well, sadly, they can't because the mechanisms are very clear that it should pass through the school authorities, and it's now the discretion of the school authorities if they will call in some law enforcement agencies, and they will pass it on to the judiciary later on. So if the case would be covered under the revised penal code.
Okay, I have a lot more questions. I'm sure our viewers as well. But now we have to take a short break. Legal Help Desk will return after these reminders. You're still watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel, and we are still joined by our guest, Senator Antonio Trillanes IV, author of the anti-bullying bill.
Yeah. So let's answer a few more questions from our viewers. Our third question is from Angie via Twitter, and she asks, are teachers who bully their students included in the anti-bullying bill?
sadly, no, they're not included because they can be covered by the revised penal code, and the anti-bullying is solely for the students.
So peer to peer.
against
It's peer to peer.
students.
No? So same.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Does it matter if, let's say, one is fourth year high school and the other one is prep?
Yeah.
Or, that's covered, right?
So elementary and high school students in particular.
So, Senator, pag college, hindi na sila covered ng bill.
I think so because they can now be covered by the revised penal code through the laws that you mentioned earlier.
Yung mga physical injuries or, again, unjust vexation. No?
No, in high school, I know this normally happens in college, but in high school, sometimes meron na, I remember when I was high school, there was already the peer pressure frats and all that. Is this covered, for example, let's say any hazing in among frats?
High school students?
In high school students,
Yes,
it will be covered.
It
But I guess
should be covered.
mag-overlap na yung dalawang laws dyan because they can be
There's a
covered by the
anti-
anti-bullying act or bill when it becomes a law act, but also they would have to be covered by hazing if the anti-hazing law, if it falls under any of those violations.
Right.
Right?
Yes,
Yep.
if they would be at the right age. But I think since the prevalence of gangs or fraternities in high school, or they're not so as prevalent as they are in college, I think they won't be having any problems in that regard.
Okay.
So, Senator, meron ba naka-indicate doon na maximum age, cut-off age?
It spoke of levels. So high school.
So pag matandang high school student, kunwari,
You can
20
be
na,
covered
nandun
by
pa rin.
the RPC. Okay.
So both.
Both.
You can be reported through the Anti-Bullying Act
Yeah.
and then also be prosecuted under the revised bill.
Yes, because the anti-bullying bill right now is primarily administrative in nature. The most penalty, the most that you can get is to be expelled from school.
Yeah.
But all the other penalties are they're quite lenient about it because precisely they're kids. They should not be traumatized by any criminal record.
Right.
They should be able to recover at
Yeah,
some point. Should they be
have an
transferred.
opportunity to
Yeah.
change it. Now, there is a DepEd circular, right? The DepEd circular, child protection policy. That's not sufficient for it. That's more of a policy. That doesn't have any teeth.
We talked about that last week
Yeah.
then with
Yeah.
our guest from DepEd. Parang ano lang siya, no, directive to schools to advise to counsel their kids and to make sure na may mechanism na for the teachers to identify. So I think it's more for the
the penalty is more on the school rather than.
And theoretically, it should be similar. But you go back to the argument between a department directive and a law, which has more teeth and
more
more.
teeth, yeah.
So as far as public policy is concerned, this one has more teeth, and the information would sink in more to the stakeholders.
Okay. We'll need your help again in answering our next question from Reggie, and he is asking us via Facebook. I wish to know if there are sanctions or forms of punishment given to bullies, especially since being talked to by a teacher or guidance counselor is not enough for them to stop bullying other children. So I think this is what we're talking about. No?
There's no.
Currently, wala pa,
Yeah.
just from pagbullying itself. But as Senator Trillanes mentioned, dun sa bill, magkakaroon na ng different types of punishment coming from the school.
From the schools. And so you have suspension, expulsion, probation, and counseling also, and that protection from retaliation. So should you report, you cannot be touched.
But this is the obligation of the school to provide protection to the students.
Yes, and of course they'd be more vigilant if there's already a case reported. So they should be more attentive to the victims as well as the perpetrators.
And sorry,
go ahead.
last question lang. Pagka naman hindi ginagawa ng school yung all of these directives, where should the parents report or the students report the school?
Through the DepEd, of course. They are obliged or mandated by the law to come up with anti-bullying policies, and they are answerable to DepEd.
Now, in cases where, for example, you have someone who's being bullied and he or she talks to his or her parents. Parents then confront the bully and I guess bully him also. Are those cases I guess covered under, because obviously the one who bullied, the original kid who bullied, will then feel bullied by that older rest back, the older brother or the parent.
And that's precisely the situation that we want to avoid with this bill. And the mechanisms for reporting are very clear. So should the child report to the parent that he has been bullied, now the parent would know right away how to report, how to go about it.
It shouldn't be attacking the bully. It should be through the school system.
Because it will make it worse.
Right.
Because the father of the bully will now press back.
Yung isa po interesting dito na gusto ko rin malaman would be how broad is the coverage of the parang cyber bullying naman.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic.
Now, diba, even kids use Facebook, they use Twitter, and what else? Instagram. So pag dun ka hinaharas, these are also covered, no? Because technically, this would happen when they're at home. I mean, they're not really just related school activities. Mahirap din for the school to watch, diba, what they're doing in social network.
It's defined here that while principally the act of bullying should happen only within school premises and the other school grounds, but we have defined it as any electronic transmission that may cause a hostile environment in school.
So kung nagkakalat din by text,
by text or
masamang
messaging
chismis about someone, then you can report that as also bullying.
For as long as it's going to affect the child in that school environment. So
that's good. Very broad coverage, no?
Wow, the time is really short. I'm sorry, Senator. We're being signaled here.
I'll ask questions after that.
Yeah, after na lang. But I think we need to recap now, no, Karen? Maybe we should recap what existing laws govern cases of bullying. At the moment, it's still pending.
Pending
in the
legislation,
Senate.
and we're all crossing our fingers that this gets passed soon.
You don't foresee any resistance to this?
No. We don't foresee any resistance, and most probably by Wednesday we'll get to pass it.
By this Wednesday.
On third reading.
Wow,
so,
that's very interesting.
And
wala namang party list sa mga bullies, di ba? So wala namang. So I don't think there's not going to be any resistance there.
Kasi Senator, we came up with this topic because a lot of parents were asking this during the last episode.
Now that the school has just started.
So at the moment, for all parents out there or students out there, you can still report to your school authorities because they can still try to do something about it.
Yeah, that's still the process to go to the school. If you feel that your child is being bullied, the best way to address it is still go through the school board.
Especially since DepEd came out with a circular requiring schools to at least do something about this. So you can complain about the school if they're not addressing this problem.
And as Senator Trillanes said, there's no real government agency to handle this case of bullying. It's still the school, right? It's still the school. And even the new law, we anticipate the new law to come out. It's still going to be primarily the school that oversees the process of addressing bullying. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for tonight. We would like to thank our guest, Senator Antonio Trillanes IV, for being with us tonight. I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno.
And I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. Join us again next Monday as we discuss your legal rights on the issue of hazing. Good night. Children like Anne have been a victim of school bullying since she was younger.
Ako po si Anne, 15 years old, incoming fourth year student po. Nag-aaral po ako sa isang private school. Ang kalimitan po yung binubully nila sa akin kasi po meron po akong syndrome na yung lower lip ko po, para pong lumalaki siya. Sinasabi po nila sa akin na ganyan, malaking labi mo, ganun. Nasasaktan po ako tuwing sinasabihan po nila ako ng ganun. At natatakot po akong magsumbong kasi po yung mga classmate ko pong yun, kadalasan po mga anak sila ng teachers, ganun po. Sa tingin ko po, yung ginagawa po na pang-discipline sa amin ng teacher ko, para po I consider that as a bullying. One day po, ni-request niya po na ilabas po namin yung journal notebook namin. Hindi po kami prepared kasi po usually pinapalabas niya po yun ng Monday. Nagalit po siya sa akin, bigla niya po akong sinigawan. That time po, sinabi ko po sa kanya yung mga dahilan kung bakit po hindi kayo nadala. And then nagulat na lang po ako na halos ipahiya niya po ako sa klase. Sigaw-sigawan niya po ako na hindi na po ako makasagot. Umiyak na lang po ako that time. Ang impact po sa akin ng pambubuli nila is nagle-lessen po yung self-confidence ko. Lalo po naisip yung mga negative na bagay tungkol sa akin. Hindi ko po magawa yung mga dapat kong gawin kasi po palagi ko po yung naiisip. Ngayon pong 4th year, naisip ko pong mag-transfer sa ibang school kasi po parang dati po ayoko na po talagang pumasok dahil po sa kanila.
Are there any laws that protect children from bullying? What existing laws does the country have in protecting its children? What should schools or school administrators and parents do when a child or a student is a victim of bullying? Good evening, I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno and you're watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you.
And I'm Attorney Nepomuceno. Tonight, we will be discussing your legal rights on the issue of school bullying, what you need to know and do when your child is being bullied in school.
Our guest for tonight is Senator Bullying has become a worldwide concern for countries around the world, with news of children who are victims of bullying going into depression. Or worse, especially with the rise of social media, bullying has reached into cyberspace, making children more susceptible to it. Senator Antonio Trillanes IV, author of the Anti-Bullying Act of 2010. Good evening, Senator. Thank you so much for making the time to join us.
Good evening, Attorney Karen, and good evening, Attorney Rod.
Good evening, sir. Thank you. Thank you at pinaunlakan niyo kami for tonight.
And you had a very interesting question kay Senator Sonny before we started. Kung nabully ka ba ever? Because you don't look like the type. No?
Because I figured, you know, if I mean, because of the image you have and everything, it must be something. It had to take something personal for you to author
yes,
this.
He authored
this
the bill on anti-bullying.
Well, personally, I myself was not really bullied, but it's actually the experience of my son when he was in grade